Picture this, it's performance review season. You walk into a small conference room, where a pile of feedback papers sits ominously on the table. Your manager is waiting, tapping their pen with a look that says, "I'm about to impart some profound wisdom that will change your career." You sit down, take a deep breath, and prepare yourself for what's supposed to be an insightful, constructive conversation. But you already know how this is going to go. Welcome to the annual corporate feedback circus. Let's break down some of the characters and scenarios you're likely to encounter in this absurd theater of performance reviews. First up, we have the buzzword blitz. You've barely sat down when the onslaught begins. Your manager leans in with a serious expression and says, "Now, we need to focus on synergy here. There's room for you to step up and really drive home your KPIs by leveraging our core competencies. We'd like to see you become a more proactive thought leader." And you're left sitting there, nodding along as your brain scrambles to decode the corporate word salad. Synergy? Thought leader? Leveraging core competencies? What does any of this mean? The best part is, the manager speaks as though this advice is a treasure trove of actionable insights. But you're left with nothing. You jot down some of the buzzwords anyway, wondering if next year's review will be a reflection on how well you synergized with the team. Next, there's the constructive criticism conundrum. This one's classic. Your manager has some feedback, but it's wrapped in vague phrases and overly polite phrasing. They start by saying, "You've been doing great, really. But we think you could improve by, just maybe being a little more proactive." You pause, trying to get clarity, but all they can offer is a vague hand wave and a few words that don't mean much of anything. The critique spirals, with non-specific suggestions like show more enthusiasm or take more ownership. You ask, "Could you give me an example of what I could do differently?" and get a long pause. Then the manager says, "I think you just need to find that inner spark," leaving you more confused than before. You nod politely, trying to figure out what inner spark they're even talking about, but ultimately end up walking out of the meeting none the wiser, wondering how you're supposed to take action on this constructive feedback. Then comes the feedback roller coaster. In this scenario, the manager starts off by praising you lavishly. You're a valuable team member. You've been consistently meeting deadlines, and clients have great things to say about you. You're feeling pretty good about yourself, until they suddenly take a 180-degree turn. However, there are a few areas we're concerned about. We feel you should be more engaged in team meetings, and maybe consider being less vocal about your opinions. Oh, but also speak up more often with fresh ideas. You start to feel like you're on a seesaw, with no idea which feedback to focus on. One minute you're the star employee, the next you're being told to sit back and also take charge. It's like they can't make up their mind. By the end, you're left wondering if they even know what they want from you. But hey, at least you got both praise and critique in one sitting, right? Moving on, we have the checkbox champion. This is the manager who follows the corporate review process to the letter. They arrive with a checklist, and it's clear they're going to march through each item with no deviations. Okay, let's see. Punctuality, check. Attitude, check. Task completion, check. There's no discussion, no context, just an itemized report card. You're graded on categories you didn't even know existed, with comments like satisfactory or needs improvement in areas you didn't know were being monitored. The meeting ends with them briskly moving on to the next review, and you're left sitting there, wondering if you were just an item on their to-do list. Any dreams of having a meaningful discussion evaporate, and you realize this review was little more than a bureaucratic exercise. A box that needed to be checked, not an actual conversation about your career. And then there's the phantom reviewer. In this case, your reviewer might be your manager, or perhaps someone who barely knows your name. They may have had minimal interactions with you throughout the year, but are somehow tasked with providing in-depth feedback on your work. You sit down, and they begin the review with phrases like "I've heard great things" or "Apparently you've been doing well with your projects." It quickly becomes obvious they're speaking in generalities, desperately trying to string together feedback based on secondhand information. You get vague praises, indirect critiques, and comments that make you wonder if they've even read your job description. It's like you're in a play, acting out your role while the director forgot to show up. You leave the room questioning how your career could be assessed by someone who barely knows what you do. And then we have the non-actionable action plan. This manager loves setting goals and targets that don't actually mean anything. They'll say, "We'd like you to work on being more enthusiastic." But when you ask for specifics, they respond with, "Just bring a bit more pep to everything." Or maybe they say, "We'd love for you to take more initiative." But when you ask for guidance on how to achieve this, they say, "Just, go for it." You walk away with an action plan that sounds impressive but offers no real way forward. Now, in your mind, you're left rehearsing for a future review where they'll ask, "Why didn't you meet your enthusiasm targets?" And you'll have to reply, "Because I'm still not sure what that means." Then there's the comparison game. Instead of focusing on your performance, the manager spends half the review comparing you to your colleagues. Now, Emily in marketing has really set the bar with her enthusiasm. And John in accounting, well, he always volunteers for the late shifts. Suddenly, you're being measured against people who have completely different roles, skills, and objectives. You start to feel like you're on a reality TV show, competing for approval, rather than receiving feedback tailored to your work. Lastly, there's the misguided mentor. This manager has decided that they're here to mentor you, whether you asked for it or not. They'll throw out bits of advice on how you could maximize your potential or unlock hidden talents, even if it has little to do with your actual goals. They'll give you wisdom nuggets like, the key to success is to think outside the box, as if that will magically transform your day-to-day tasks. And you're left nodding politely, grateful that the clock is ticking down on this surreal pep talk. By the time the review is over, you've gone through an emotional journey. From amusement to confusion, then to mild frustration, and finally to acceptance that corporate performance reviews will never be the enlightening experience they're supposed to be. You've made it through the feedback circus, survived the buzzword blitz, dodged the phantom reviewer, and lived to tell the tale. So, here's the truth. Performance reviews in the corporate world are often as much about checking off boxes as they are about genuine career development. It's a game of catchphrases, buzzwords, and vague suggestions wrapped in a package labeled constructive feedback. And if you're lucky, maybe once in a blue moon, you'll have a review that actually feels meaningful. Enjoyed the video? Make sure to hit that like button, subscribe to join our community, and click the bell so you never miss out on the next round of corporate comedy. See you in the next one.